Hello, welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Sisters Edition, with your hosts, Ariane Smith
and Tiffany Hales.
Real life sisters here to bring you the Mormon news.
Exactly, for the month of February.
And we're doing it a little different this month. We are going to have 2 episodes because there wasn't a podcast last week, and there obviously has been a lot of stuff in the news this week.
Yes.
We just had a massive amount of stories. And so we decided, instead of doing an extra long podcast that's over an hour, because nobody wants to listen to a podcast that's over an hour.
You don't.
We're going to do 2 minis.
Exactly.
So we split it up.
We did.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Which is what we're on now.
Yes.
We're going to talk hard news.
Hard news.
Episode 2, which we're going to record right after this. We're going to talk pop culture news.
Exactly. And it is my understanding that they are both going to be released at the same time. So you don't have to listen to one and wait for the other. But we thought that would be a good way to divide them out, because we had equal amounts of really fun pop culture news we wanted to talk about, as well as heartbreaking news. Not heartbreaking.
Well, some of it might be.
Well, yes, some of it might be.
Hard-hitting news.
Hard-hitting news. That is the adjective I am looking for. And, since February is the shortest month of the year, why not have a supersized episode of Twin Sisters? It's
two little shorty ones.
No, it's like 2 for the price of 1.
I know, which is so funny that February is the shortest month, but we got a lot of news this month.
Seriously.
Lots of stuff happening. Okay.
Seriously. So let's catch up from last month.
Catch up a little.
Going on in lives.
Okay. My extra steak that we always talk about. I feel like deja vu. Do you remember last summer? I think it was last summer, at the end of the summer. I was like, my steak is famous for bringing in famous LDS people to talk.
Yes, they bring them in on the Scentsy plate.
They bring them in.
The Scentsy guy lives in your steak, and he's like, "Hey, I'll."
So at the end of last summer, we had Bonnie Cordon come and do a fireside for the youth.
Yes.
And she's coming back to do a fireside for the Relief Society sisters.
What?
In 2 weeks.
Are you kidding me?
Someone has the hookup.
Are you kidding me?
No, someone has the hookup with Bonnie Cordon. I don't know who it is. She's like somebody's mother-in-law or cousin or something. I have no idea. But clearly someone in my stake knows her, and she's coming back. But they've opened it up for a regional thing. Anyway.
Oh, so when is this occurring? Do you recall?
March 12th. Your stake will probably get invited.
Which is kind of funny because no. So March 12th is a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. They're doing it on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Because the day before, on March 11th, we are doing a stake women's Relief Society women's event.
Yeah,
this is our conflict with our stake.
Every year we do a stake Relief Society thing
on a Sunday
this time of year. No, usually it's on a Tuesday night, but I'm guessing Bonnie, we're scheduling around Bonnie.
Well, that's probably true.
But they are also having the president of BSU, who I did not realize was LDS. Did you know she was LDS?
Marlene Trump is LDS.
I'm assuming if she's speaking at this fireside.
I don't think she's LDS. I need to get my phone and Google that.
Okay, you Google, because in the meantime, I have a hilarious.
Okay, you tell your hilarious story, because I'm not dissing on the president of BSU. I mean, she is.
Maybe she's not. I just assumed
very, very liberal, but
I was shocked that she was. But maybe she's just speaking. But they said she's speaking about God, so maybe she's just Christian and coming to speak about. Anyway, on the topic of extra and special things that wards and stakes do. I have a friend. I just have to share this because it makes me laugh so hard. I have a friend. She does not live here. She lives out of state. Her ward that she lives in the summertime, when, it's warm and, light late at night and it's a party, her bishop does every Sunday night at midnight. He calls it McMidnight. And
Sunday night, not like Saturday leading into Sunday, or Sunday after church is over,
Sunday
leading into Monday.
After church is over, midnight, Monday morning, he does McMidnight and takes the kids to McDonald's. Is that not hilarious? I about died when she told me. I about died laughing.
So it's 12. This is like BYU.
This is like what we used to do at BYU.
Exactly.
We would go to Village Inn at 12 a.m. on Monday morning.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I love it so much. I think it's hilarious. And I think the best part of it is the name, McMidnight.
McMidnight. Yes, that is funny. Okay, so I am cruising Marlene Trump here. I'm to her Wikipedia page. Let's see what it says on her Wikipedia page.
Okay. Well,
there is nothing on her Wikipedia page that makes me believe that she is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So maybe they just are being like,
maybe they just invited her because she's a member of the community.
She's a member of the community. Apparently, she believes in God and has some things to say about that. So,
well, I'm actually really interested in this.
You're going to need to go because, like, good on your steak for thinking outside the box and inviting her to a women's conference, and good for her for accepting it because, I mean, let's face it, we could be a tough crowd.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'll report back.
Oh, I'm very interested in this now.
Well, you're going to get invited too, probably.
Well, I probably will.
They're opening it up.
Since they're opening it up. Maybe I'll just have to come.
If you're having Bonnie Corden come all the way, you got to open it up.
Yeah, kind of like what they did when they brought in Sherry Dew.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so what's new with you?
Okay, so speaking of steaks and state conference, we had state conference in January. And I can't remember why I didn't talk about this in the January episode, but my husband was asked to pray in state conference. And so, he and I are kind of talking about this in advance, what do you do? What do you say? And I said, here's the deal with praying in state conference. You get up, you invite the Spirit to the meeting, you thank everybody for being there, and then you shut up and you sit down.
Yeah.
Because we have had kind of a variety of different types of prayers of state conference in my stake. There was one time, it was a closing prayer.
Oh.
And I was particularly tired. I don't know if I hadn't slept well the night before or whatever. Like, this closing prayer went on and on and on. Like, it was seriously like a 5-minute closing prayer.
You can't do that at the end.
Well, here's what happened. I fell asleep and started snoring in the middle of the prayer because it was so dang long. And my husband's like elbowing me. And so I was like, yeah. No talk for the prayer. And then we've also had somebody get up in state conference with their little phone and read the prayer for state conference. Oh. Now, it is my understanding, although I did not witness this firsthand, that person got a little chided by a member of the stake presidency because reading the prayer for state conference is not an appropriate way to pray in state conference. So I told my husband, I said, get up, 5 or 6 sentences, sit down, shut up.
Short and sweet.
I
think you got to keep it that way for sacrament meeting too.
Agreed. Amen.
Shorter the better. Did I ever tell you that we are having youth say prayers in our sacrament meeting now?
Yes, you mentioned that.
I couldn't remember if I had mentioned that or not.
Yeah, because I was talking about how we have youth leading the music.
Oh, yeah. See, we've done that for, well, we don't do it in this ward, but our old ward had done that for years, but the prayers were new. Anyway, they stopped. They paused. Maybe they're going to bring it back. Maybe they went through all the youth and now they have to wait a while.
You know what my ward's doing for sacrament meeting prayers? I've noticed the last few weeks.
What?
They are calling up in advance people that we have not seen at church for a while and inviting them to say the prayers is a method to get them to come to church.
You mean young men or like grown-up men?
Like adults.
Adults.
Like adults that we haven't seen for a while.
They're going to catch on to that pretty quickly.
Anyway, I was like, I'm giving them props for having the guts to do that because that takes a lot of guts.
Because I think people will be on to you.
Yeah, like I said, I was just like, the first week it happened, I was like, whoa, okay, somebody got smart on that. But you know what? Then that family returned the next week too, and they didn't have to pray. Wow. So anyway,
do you not have enough young men in your ward, or are they just sharing the love?
Well, we haven't invited the youth to pray, which is probably a good thing because
I thought you meant the sacrament prayers.
No,
you mean the
no. I mean the opening and closing prayer. I'm not talking the sacrament prayer.
Okay.
No. We are having a hard enough time with the young men struggling to understand the concept of how to pass the sacrament that I don't really think at this point in time we want them to pray. We need to master that task first. Anyway, last Sunday was just like, it was kind of, my husband was like zoned out in his zone and it was oblivious to what was going on. And I probably should have been zoned out in the zone because it was a hot mess.
Boys scattered everywhere.
Boys scattered everywhere, didn't know what they were doing, talking to each other. I'm just like, one kid had a bloody nose in the middle of it.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
That's a situation.
It was a situation. All of a sudden, he's out the door and he passes it off to the nearest priest and older next to him, and now he has the water.
He's got 2 trays and he doesn't know what to do. Oh man.
Anyway, it was yeah. Anyway, so
poor kid.
So, should we do some news?
Yes.
Since we are here for the hard-hitting news.
Oh, we got a doozy this week.
We do have a doozy this week. So, our opening story should be of no surprise to anybody who has opened any Mormon publication, newspaper at all this week. The church, along with Ensign Peak, which is wholly owned by the church and is an investment arm of the church, got a little $5 million fine this week from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Yeah. So I have to tell you how I found out about this. This was kind of funny. So Tuesday, I'm at my office, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I've never had an office with kind of a higher percentage of LDS people that work in the office. You've
hardly ever had LDS.
I've hardly ever worked with members of the church.
And when you told me your boss was LDS, I was like, really?
Yeah. Anyway,
you never had an LDS.
No,
boss.
Never had an LDS boss. Anyway, and there wasn't any intent in how that hiring all went down. It just kind of is what it is.
Sure.
But they all know I do a podcast. I'm not sure any of them have been brave enough to listen to it. Probably because they have to listen to me enough in the office. They're like, yeah, we don't need any extra. So I can't remember where I was or what I was doing, but I stepped away from my desk, and then I come back to my desk, and there's an article on my desk about this SEC filing. And I'm like, who printed this off and delivered it to my desk? So I went around to the potential suspects, and finally I got to my boss. I'm like, are you responsible for this? And he's like, yes, I am. He's like, you might want to characterize that under Mormons behaving badly. Because although he doesn't listen to the podcast, he knows enough to know that I have a segment on Mormons behaving badly, because I'm always telling him about the Mormons behaving badly.
And now he's on the lookout for Mormons behaving badly.
Now he's on the lookout for Mormons behaving badly.
And he found the closest ones you could get to home.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a rough story. This has caused quite the stir this week.
It really has. So anyway, and we have multiple news articles about it because first of all, there was the initial article that came out. And then Deseret News did an opinion piece, and then Common Consent did an opinion piece, and this was like point counterpoint. And so we're going to talk about that.
They were very stark.
They were very stark, and then just kind of some highlights from the SEC report. So,
and we're waiting for the Tribune opinion piece.
Yeah,
I haven't seen one from them yet.
the Trib has not done
They've done a lot of articles on it, but
not done a piece yet.
Not an opinion piece.
So, what was I going to say? Oh, so let's give a little background here.
Okay.
There was an individual who happened to work for Ensign Peak, like I said, investment arm of the church. And his name was David A. Nielsen. And he had kind of an interesting background. He worked on Wall Street, and he worked for he had a lucrative career, and he leaves that lucrative career because he gets an offer from Ensign Peak, and he thinks, oh, I'm going to go work for the church, and do good things with this investment and this money. And he quickly soured on working for Ensign Peak, and he disagreed with the methods and some of the things that Ensign Peak was doing, and he ultimately filed this whistleblower complaint. And so he files this whistleblower complaint with the IRS, and the basis of his whistleblower complaint was a couple of things. First of all, he was saying they're not paying taxes, and they should pay taxes because they're not using this money for charitable purposes, and they're making all of this profit. So that was one of his things. And then another one of his beefs was this SEC filing. So this is where the church landed in trouble. So the church starts Ensign Peak in 1997, and I believe they dumped like $100 million. They dumped a bunch of money, seed money, into Ensign Peak to start this. And so there's a certain point in time where if you have investments over, I'm trying to remember what the amount was. 100 million.
100 million, I think.
Yeah. If you have investments over 100 million, you have to fill out this SEC form, which is known as the 13F. And so as Ensign Peak continues to grow in its investments and they are hitting these thresholds, they don't want to have to fill out this 13F form, because this 13F form is a public form that anybody can access. And people like to follow these 13F forms because they like to see how big hedge funds and money managers, what they're investing in and what they are, where they're putting their money. So the church has a whole variety of reasons.
Yes, I've heard many.
I've heard many as well. Let's talk about some of those reasons.
Let's talk about the speculation here.
The speculation is why they wanted to avoid having to fill the 13F form out and disclose this publicly.
Right. Speculation A.
First of all, we had no idea the amount and wealth of their investments until 2019.
That's when the whistleblower
came out.
And said it was like, how many billions?
30 billion, something like that.
Close to 40 billion.
And that's when the church started filling out the 13F form. And we were like, oh, he wasn't kidding. They really do have that much money.
Right.
Anyway.
So there's a lot of speculation on why they wanted to break this out. So what they did instead of this, they broke it out into all these little tiny corporations.
Yes.
That,
Yeah. So what they did is that, so they said, they created these different LLCs. And so there was the Ensign Peak LLC, and then they had all these other LLCs, and they would say, oh, this LLC is managing this, and this LLC is managing that, so that it looked like the management of this $30 billion was being done by a whole bunch of different LLCs.
People. So they didn't have to fill out this form and say what they were investing in.
Exactly. And they went to extreme lengths to really this person, people can see this person works for the church, so we better not have them sign this form and we better do this instead. I mean, they were really going to great lengths to hide this.
Right.
Now, supposedly they are wanting to hide this for a couple of different reasons.
One potential reason is they don't want the amount of money. I mean, this money has just ballooned.
Yes.
And, that's great. They can do a lot of good with that money. But one of the reasonings is if people realize how much money there is, they might not pay their tithing anymore.
That's very true.
Or as much tithing.
They might not pay their tithing or as much tithing. The church may get significant backlash for and I think we saw this as soon as it became public.
A couple of years ago when this came out, there was a big backlash.
In terms of, you have this much money, you should be helping more people, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And they faced an onslaught of criticism about how they were managing their money and what they were doing with it.
There's also been speculation that maybe they wanted to hide this because they don't want people saying, oh my gosh, the church isn't investing in Disney. I got to invest in Disney. Mm-hmm. The Lord loves Disney.
I've used this argument in the opposite. My husband will go off on a tangent. And I'm not going to say which companies he dislikes, but he has some strong feelings on companies. And so I happened to buy a product from a particular company that shall not be named. And my husband basically said I was going to go to hell for buying this particular product from this particular company because they were so evil. And then I just pulled up the SEC filing. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be in good company because the church owns this much stock in this company. So if I'm going to hell, they're going with me.
That is hilarious.
It was so funny.
That's hilarious. Well, and that is another reason that people are speculating also is, these funds have so many different companies in them.
Yeah. Are
people going to pick through this with a fine-tooth comb and be like, oh my gosh, the church invested in a fund that owns a casino or something like that,
Which I think they've been very careful to do that because if you recall, when this list of funds first came out, they were noticeably absent was any soda company. They did not invest in any caffeine-related products.
Well, That's not a thing anymore. Come on.
But apparently it's enough not to invest in.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
No Coca-Cola, no Pepsi, none of that.
So there's just been a vast array of reasons why this may or may not have happened.
Exactly. I have another theory too, and nobody online has addressed this theory.
What's this?
This is my little lawyer hat, that they didn't want it out there how much the church is worth, because the church repeatedly gets sued over and over and over again for all sorts of different stuff. And they didn't want to invite more lawsuits to go, oh, that's a wealthy church, or to say, hey, judge, you should make them pay this amount because that look, we know what the dollar signs in their bank account actually are. So there were a lot. Mm-hmm. I think there was probably a whole variety of reasons as to why they did not want this information public. So they devised this, for lack of a better word, scheme. Although in their statement, the church throws the lawyers under the bus.
They do, but...
And I was a little miffed about them throwing the lawyers under the bus.
But they threw the lawyers under the bus. But then when the SEC report said this was approved...
Oh, yeah.
By, the upper,
exactly. They say
first presidency level
first
of the church
level approved.
So we got two different stories here.
Well, again, this is Tiffany 101. I think that it's very convenient to say, oh, we thought we were just fine. We received legal advice. Mm-hmm. So then when they say, yes, we approve this, well, we approved this because our lawyers told us it was okay.
I mean, that's why you hire lawyers, right?
Exactly. So my question is,
because you could throw them under the bus.
If your lawyers told you this was okay, why are you suing them for malpractice? Because clearly it's not.
Right.
And the other thing too, in one of these articles, I got to see if I can find it right here. This was in the Salt Lake Tribune article, that 2 church audit department internal audits of Ensign Peak, one in 2014 and one in 2017, highlighted the risk that the SEC might disagree with Ensign Peak's reporting approach. So
even their internal auditors were saying, this is risky.
I'm not denying that the lawyers said, hey, you could probably get away with this. Because you can basically find 2 types of lawyers. You can find lawyers that will give you the advice you want to hear, and you can find lawyers that will give you the advice you should hear. Mm-hmm. I think maybe they found some lawyers that gave them the advice that they wanted to hear, and the lawyers were probably like, yeah, you can this will probably be okay. I think this will be all right. Here was the sticking point. So if these little sub LLCs, if they had actually transferred management of the stock to those sub LLCs, mm-hmm. they would have been absolutely fine to continue what they were doing. The biggest problem is these sub LLCs were kind of like little shell companies, because Ensign Peak retained all of the management decisions for all of these stocks. So that's where they really got into trouble, was these LLCs that said they were running the stock weren't really running the stock. They had agreements. So they would say that, okay, this stock falls under the LLC of ABC Company, and they have an agreement with ABC Company that Ensign Peak is going to manage it for ABC Company.
Right.
So that's how they thought that they were covered. But the SEC said, nah, it does not work that way.
No.
You have to actually transfer this to ABC Company and let ABC Company actually manage it. You can't have an agreement that you get to manage it, because ABC Company doesn't want to manage it.
Yeah. So anyway, very interesting thing. The Deseret News released an opinion piece.
Yes.
Who wrote that opinion piece?
Okay. So this opinion piece was written, and you know what? I didn't copy who they were. Both of them, when I remember looking at the Deseret News piece, it was written by James Anderson and John Faust. I think they were tax lawyer people out of DC, if I recall correctly from reading their bio.
Right.
So here is their piece. And
so they were, the church came out, they said, sorry, we messed up. We paid the fine. This is over. They kind of quick.
Yeah.
Me culpa. Sorry.
Oops, our bad.
We're done though. We paid the fine. We're good.
And we'll look for better lawyers next time.
So the Deseret News opinion piece was very much, I was shocked at how strongly it was defending the church and just like, this is a technicality. Like, this is just a technicality in the paperwork. Normally the SEC doesn't like make a big deal of these things. And they like real hard. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. They were like, why y'all making a big deal about this? Because this form F13F is just not really a big deal, and it's not really useful, and it's not practical, and we just don't understand what the big deal is.
Right. So that one was hardcore, like
that one.
Calm down, everybody. And then by common consent, Sam Brunson released an opinion piece, and he was also quoted in the Tribune article.
Yes.
And I really liked his piece. He kind of like held him to it. He was like, look,
you violated the rules.
You broke the rules, and we go to a church where we expect
people to follow the rules
and to be honest in our dealings. Like, that is a temple recommend question.
Yes.
Are you honest in your dealings with fellow men? Was the church honest in this dealing? Not particularly. So, and that's okay. That happens, but let's like moving forward. Yes. I really liked what he said about like, he personally hopes, I also would hope too, that this maybe inspires some more transparency in the future from the church towards its members, which I know is a criticism that some members have. I know this doesn't bug everybody. Some people are completely fine. Like, the church can take our tithing money and do whatever. And like, I have full faith and trust. Like, many people feel that way, but I think there are many others that do not feel that way, that really feel like, you know what, I would like a little bit more transparency, a little bit more accountability, just a little bit more. And I think that's fair. I don't know. I think it's fair for a person to feel like that. I mean, I know we have trust in the Lord and faith in our leaders, but also I don't think the church is so big. It is massive. It is a business. It's a business.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with a little more transparency. And also for me, just personally, it feels a little icky that they don't trust us enough.
Yes.
Like the statement, and this didn't come from the church. I know this is also speculation, but we're pretty sure that like this is one of the thoughts that was discussed. Like, will the members stop paying their tithing? Personally, that makes me feel a little bit icky to think that high up leaders in the church think, well, if it gets out that we have, billions of dollars, people might stop paying their tithing. Well, that's true, but you also have to have faith in the members. Like, there are many faithful members that will be fine with that, and they will continue to pay their tithing. And they're just hoping that you continue to do good. And the church does do a lot of good.
Yeah.
And I think they could do more.
Exactly.
Everybody could do more. I mean, when you have that many billion, you could do endless amounts of good. But I think it just feels kind of icky that like they would have that little of faith in the members.
And I think that was one of a laundry list of concerns, and I agree with you as well, because this isn't faith shattering to me in paying my tithing, because paying my tithing is not about that. That's between me and the Lord. I never think of when I'm paying my tithing that I'm like paying it to the church or Salt Lake or the First Presidency. I'm like, this is a commandment that the Lord has given me, and I am paying this to the Lord. And whatever happens to my tithing dollar once I hit the submit button, I don't really care, because that's not what this is about. This is about something that the Lord has asked me to do. And so I'm doing that. I'm choosing to do that because I'm choosing to exercise that faith and understanding that principle.
Right. So I don't know. It's also interesting, the various reactions. I feel like every time we have one of these big scandals, like the abuse thing, this thing, I feel like it really divides the members.
It does.
There's like two camps. Like, there's a camp like, the church screwed up, we want more transparency. And there's the camp that's like, get over it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Calm down. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I just wish that we could have room for each other.
Exactly.
And just recognize, and also for ourselves. I think sometimes it is scary when you have grown up and just tried to be so faithful your whole life and never talk bad about leaders. I think it can be a really unsettling feeling inside to feel like they messed up.
Yeah.
what does this mean if they messed up? And so I think if we can all like give ourselves and give each other a little bit of grace, like, like you can admit that they messed up and you can feel conflicted about that. And that's okay. Like, that's part of life. Life is messy. People make mistakes.
Life is messy. I love that.
And you're going to have to live with those conflicting feelings. Yeah. And it's not comfortable, but that is the place we are in. So if we can all just give each other a little grace to like allow each other to have our feelings, and
I agree,
recognize that it's okay if someone feels icky about this.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And I still think, at least for this week's go round, they're going to fall in the Mormons behaving badly category. Never did I think I was going to put the church.
First time ever we've put them in there.
Church in the Mormons behaving badly category. Come on, we can do better.
Oh, man.
Well, and I have to say they are doing better, because as of 2019, when this all started and the SEC said, no, they have filed correctly. And we now have the transparency that we previously did not have. So,
and hopefully we'll just get more and more.
Yeah. And it will be interesting to see. I mean, the whole whistleblower thing is still not done. What, if anything, is going to happen with the IRS complaint about not paying taxes? I think the church is going to be fine on that. I'm not too worried about that one. All right. Well, should we talk about something else other than the SEC stuff?
Yes. The other thing that has happened over the past few weeks is there were some changes to the temple endowment ceremony at the temple.
Although I think we like to call them adjustments.
Not
changes.
Adjustments. That's right. Nothing earth shattering. Nothing is
just was adjusted.
All of the covenants are the same. Anyway, Jana Reese wrote an article about it. She talked about how the church has been kind of moving this direction since when was Elder Bednar's talk? 2019, when Elder Bednar gave that talk in General Conference, where he listed
all the 5
covenants that you make in the temple, like in a conference talk. And just like there's kind of this move to be like a little more open about it. Obviously, we still don't like talk exactly like get specific about it. But anyway, they just updated it a little. Actually went finally this week.
Okay.
By the way, temple attendance has peaked in the past 2 weeks.
Let me tell you.
This happens every time they make a tweak. Everybody's like, did you go to the temple yet? Did you go to the temple yet?
Well, you know what? Here's what was really interesting about this adjustment. So I was in my office on a Tuesday, and I get a text from one of the laundry workers who is a paid employee at the temple saying, hey, schedule an endowment session because they made adjustments and you're going to want to go. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'd actually already scheduled an endowment session because it was our ward endowment on Saturday, our ward temple night. And so I had an endowment already scheduled. And so usually, I mean, we get maybe 20 people in there, maybe 25 if we're lucky. Oh no, it was packed to the gills. And so it sounds like your session was packed too.
Oh yeah, ours was packed. And I've heard, I mean, I haven't tried, but I've had friends that have tried scheduling throughout the week, and they're like, oh, these are filling up so fast.
And what was really interesting that I thought is there was no mention of this change on the church news website. The church issued no press release. It just spread
like wildfire.
Word of mouth.
We are excellent at that.
The Tribune did an article on it.
It's one of our secret superpowers.
Exactly. I don't even think the Deseret News covered it. The Tribune did an article on it, but yeah, it was radio silent from the church. It just had to like
trickle down,
and through that
trickle down, which
I have to say, I liked the adjustments.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, when I first went through the temple, everything seemed so disjointed and it didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah.
But with the adjustments that they made several years ago and the adjustments that they've made now, to me now it seems much more cohesive than it ever has been.
Right.
And I really like that.
Yeah, I do too. They kind of at the beginning, they summarize the covenants you're going to make. I thought the same thing. I thought this would have been really good 20 years ago or whenever I was first going through. It just flows better and you know what to expect better.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And I have to say my favorite change, they took out the part about loud laughter. So I can now laugh as loud as I want.
Jennifer's talked about that.
Not that really stopped me before.
So funny. So funny. Okay.
All right.
What is next?
So our next story is, and again, this was kind of a big deal. This came from the Church News. They released this on February 15th. The First Presidency issued a directive for Easter Sunday. We are going to have sacrament meeting only.
Yay! Okay, when they issued this, I was like, how has it never crossed my mind before that we should only be doing sacrament meeting?
Seriously?
Every time Christmas falls on a Sunday, it's a given. Sacrament meeting only. Not once in my life has the thought ever crossed my mind, why do we not do this on Easter?
But you know what? Even if you get Christmas like on a Saturday or a Monday, if you get Christmas somewhere adjacent to Sunday,
that's true.
You'll get the hour. You'll get the only hour on Sunday.
That is true.
So
I remember I was telling my husband when this came out, I was like, have we never done this before? We've always had 2 hours on Sunday. And he said, yeah, but then he pointed out that probably 50% of the time Easter Sunday falls on conference. I was like, oh, you're right. Yeah, it does.
It does.
Anyway, I love this. I love this so much. And not just because I want to get out of church an hour early, which everybody I know is like, I don't know what's wrong with us Mormons. Every time it's like 1 hour church.
We used to do 3 hour church. How did we do 3 hour church?
We feel like we won the lottery. But it's not just about that. I was thinking about this and I was thinking, no, you know what? This has potential to really make your sacrament meeting focused on Christ. Nobody is worried about the primary lesson they have to teach afterwards. All of the focus goes into that sacrament meeting and you can come and really, really focus. So I think this is a fabulous idea.
And they specifically said in their release, sacrament meeting that day provides an opportunity to feature Christ-centered messages and sacred music, which I love because let me tell you, the Easter hymns, some of the Easter hymns are some of my favorite hymns.
And we never get to sing them because Christmas you sing the whole month.
Yeah.
But Easter you get like maybe a week.
Exactly. And if conference falls on an Easter, you're not singing those hymns. And those Easter hymns, some of those Easter hymns are absolutely my favorite. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yes, I am on board.
Okay, next article. This also is from the Deseret News. So, Spencer W. Kimball. I would say he was before your time, but he was still he was prophet at the time
when I was born.
So he was prophet from 73 to 85. So he was prophet for the first 6 years of your life. Yes. He was prophet from the time I was 6 until I was...
He was like your prophet.
He was like my prophet.
Because I feel like the prophet that is the prophet when you're in high school is the one that just like really, really sticks with you.
Exactly.
And maybe college.
Exactly. But here's the rub on that. The last few years of his life, he was kind of incapacitated. So I would say I only felt he was the prophet like maybe through my junior high years.
Oh, okay.
But he was big on journal keeping. And during the time he was a prophet, he very much stressed to members of the church, please keep a journal. And this was one of those things is it wasn't do as I say, not as I'm doing. He was a very vigilant journal keeper. So once he passed away, his journals were retained by his family. But in 2008, they donated the collection to the church history library with the request they be prepared for public release after appropriate review. And so the church has now released those journals. Now, I didn't have the opportunity to get online and actually take a look at them, but my understanding is not only are there written stuff in there, but the journal was almost kind of like a scrapbook. Like he'd cut out newspaper articles and save little mementos and things like that went into his journal. And they are easily accessible because if you have a membership number, you can log on with a free church account to view the digitized images due to copyrighted material contained in the collection from the newspaper clippings. So it is accessible with your LDS account, and I kind of want to go take a look at it. I think it would be really interesting to read, especially around the time that he was called as prophet, and also what his journals had to say during the revelation on blacks in the priesthood.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Could be very interesting.
Okay, we have another journal story.
I know. The church is just releasing journals right and left.
Giving everybody's journals out. Thank goodness they don't have mine. Oh my gosh, that is my nightmare. Actually, don't have any. The only ones I have are from junior high and high school, and they are bad.
Oh, that is mine. Like my children are like, Mom, we want to read them. I'm like, no, you don't. I don't even want to read them. It gives me too much angst.
Yes. Okay. So this other journal that the church just published is an 1883 journal from Belle Harris. It is a prison journal. So Belle Harris was a 23-year-old LDS woman. She had been in a plural marriage, but her marriage had ended. Now,
I'm thinking maybe her marriage ended not because she didn't love him anymore.
That's what was my question. They didn't say, because this was right after they changed the law, the Plural Marriage Act, or and they were starting to crack down and arrest people. And they didn't say if they said it was her former husband and he had other wives, but they didn't say if her marriage ended because of that or if it was a mutual agreement.
Yeah,
they didn't say.
I didn't get the impression,
but this was her ex-husband.
That this was a contentious situation.
Yeah. So former husband, she got sent to jail because she was called to testify before a grand jury in Utah. They were trying to convict him, and she refused to testify. So she got sent to jail with her baby. She had a little nursing,
a 10-month-old baby,
baby at the time.
She took Horace to jail with her.
So she got sent to jail, and she was there over the summer. I think it sounded like about 4 months.
Yeah,
over the summer.
May to August, I think.
And while she was there, she kept a journal. She didn't keep a journal the rest of her life, but they think that maybe she was encouraged by church leaders because she had visits from prominent church leaders while she was there.
Who was it that I saw that visited her?
Oh, there were a ton.
Eliza our snow visitor.
Yep. There were lots of those old ones.
Emmeline Wells.
Yep.
Pretty much anybody who has a building named after them in Heritage House.
Yes. So anyway, she kept this prison journal, and it sounds interesting. I haven't read any of it, but it is available online for anybody who wants to go read.
I got online today and I took a look at it. Did you read
some?
I did. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's somewhat hard to read because her spelling is so bad. Oh. And so you can't really skim it. You have to really look at it and think about what she's trying to say. But I think how fascinating to read what she was going through when she was in prison.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Okay. Next article.
Also, I'm kind of sad for her. I'm like, why did she go to prison?
Yeah. Well, and they were kind of perplexed that she just flat out refused to answer the question, were you married to him?
Right.
She's like, no, I'm not answering that question. And they're like, well, we'll have to send you to jail. And she's like, I don't care. I'm not answering the question. And they were so perplexed that she wouldn't just answer the question to stay out of jail. And she's like, yeah, no. That's what makes me think that this divorce
if it were like a divorce, she would have been like, yeah, I'll answer your question.
I'll dime out my ex-husband. She didn't want to dime him out because she knew if she dimed him out, he was going to go to jail. And so I think that she had some true love for this.
I guess. Gentleman. I don't know. That's kind of wild.
Anyway, so and the way she got out of jail was the grand jury term expired because she was appearing in front of the grand jury. And once the grand jury term expired, they lacked the authority to be able to keep her in jail. So, all right, next story, NBA All-Stars. I don't know if y'all heard, last weekend, President's Day weekend, they went to the big SLC to play in, I don't know if it's still the Vivid Arena. I think it's going back to be the Delta Center, but I don't think it's back to being the Delta Center just yet. I think it's still the Vivid Arena.
I can't keep track.
So the All-Stars were in Salt Lake, and I had no idea that apparently there is a charitable arm of the NBA, because I just assumed they were always inflated hotheads making millions of dollars and cared nothing about their narcissistic selves. But apparently...
Well, they are, but they have to do this too.
Apparently there are some of them.
I'm trying to clean up their reputation.
Who, there's a charitable arm of the NBA, which is called MBA Cares. And so when they all came to town for the All-Stars, they wanted to do service. So where is the best place to do service in Salt Lake City? Ding, ding. Welfare Square. So they sent them all to Welfare Square with Elder Ronald A. Razband. So Elder Razband is sitting at Welfare Square.
Oh, how'd he get that job? I want to know, the process. Did they draw straws? Was he like, pick me, pick me, pick me?
Who has to go deal with the NBA players and their egos?
Who loves basketball the most? Maybe he's a huge basketball fan.
I have no idea. But in any event, this was Elder Rasband's assignment. Whether it was by choice or by force is unknown. So Elder Rasband is working alongside Indiana Pacers basketball player Buddy Hield, and they were working at the Bishop's Central Storehouse, and they were talking about these kits that they were assembling. And Elder Rasband said he wanted to know, what is an apostle? So I was able to share with him about my calling, and he shared with me more about participating in the 3-point competition Saturday nights.
Nice.
So they swapped some stories, and so they were putting together these food and hygiene kits that were actually going to go to local food banks and shelters in Utah to help people there. And before they engaged in any of this service, all the MBA guests were taken on a tour of the Bishop's Central Storehouse. And Darren Williams, who was a former NBA player for the Jazz, he was happy to be back in Utah. He brought his family to the service event. And so not only was he assembling these hygiene kits, he had his family there doing that as well. And so I thought, well, that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure for those players who have never been to Welfare Square, that was probably an impressive tour, because I highly recommend, if you are in Utah or if you are visiting Utah, go do the tour of Welfare Square, because it will blow you away.
I've never done that.
You need to go do that and take your kids there.
You can just go on a tour?
I don't know how often they do the tours, but they have missionaries there who do tours. Oh, and
I had no idea.
It's really cool. Like, I'll give you an example. So when I'm cleaning out my clothing, if I have something that's like stained or holy, and I think, oh, well, I don't want to donate that to the DI because it's got a stain on it or it's got a hole. No, donate it to the DI, because I learned on the tour of Welfare Square, they take that clothing that they can't sell in the store because it's stained or ripped or teared, and they actually rip it up and they make these rugs that they send out all across America.
Oh, really?
They upcycle all of the material from the clothing they can't
use. That's pretty cool.
I leave it to the church.
I had no idea.
It was really cool. So it kind of gave me a whole new look on, okay, I'm not going to throw something away that I can donate to the DI, because the church has a purpose for it.
Wow.
And it can be repurposed. So, and I think that's good stewardship of our resources here on this planet.
That's great.
All right.
Okay. Last story is a quick one. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints donated a church building in Idaho Falls to the community food bank. They had an old building from the 1950s that they weren't using anymore. It used to have mission offices for the Idaho Falls mission, and the food bank needed a bigger building, so the church gave it to them.
I love that. That is so awesome.
Love it. Love it.
Okay. Sadly, this needs to happen in Eagle, Idaho. We have a little teeny tiny food bank in Eagle, Idaho, and it serves 750 families a month. It serves a bunch of people, and they're losing their space.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Can we give them a church building?
They have been struggling to find a new space to move into, because the building owner that let them the space didn't charge them any rent or anything. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember I think he sold the building, and so now they have to move, and so they're really struggling where to move. And so I'm like, well,
do we have any extra churches right now?
There's a really old icky church in Eagle. I don't go to that one, but couldn't we build us a new pretty church and let the food bank have that one? It's not quite as old as the Idaho Falls Church. The Idaho Falls Church was circa 1950s. I think this one is probably circa early 70s. But anyway.
Oh, we got to find them an old church.
Okay, so now we are on to my favorite section, Mormons behaving badly. Now, I already did discuss one candidate for Mormons behaving badly, but I got some more. So you may recall several months ago, we had an arsonist here in Boise who targeted an LDS building here in Boise, and he set the church on fire.
Yes.
He was recently sentenced. He's 22 years old. He was given 10 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 3 years, but that sentence was suspended, and he will serve 45 days in a community transition center. So he has some pretty severe mental health problems. They're trying to work on those mental health problems, seeing if he can integrate back into society. So he was sentenced for that particular crime. And then, of course, it's not a complete Twin Sisters update without a Belle or Mormons behaving badly update. segment, Mormons Behaving Badly segment, without a Daybell Vallow update by the twin sisters.
Okay. What do you have? I have not seen anything new lately.
Okay. Well, they are 5 weeks away from trial.
Oh my gosh, it's that soon?
It's that soon.
Have you gotten your jury summons yet?
I have not gotten my jury summons, although we have a listener of this podcast who lives over in the town we grew up in, Kristen Pancarry. She has sent me a message and she's like, Tiffany, we need to go to the Daybell trial and we need to go sit there for at least one day. And I was like, oh, girlfriend, I'm so in on that. I will take a vacation day from work to go sit in the Daybell trial.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
I told her, I said, we're going to have to see how they do the public seating. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a situation where I'm going to have to go like camp out at midnight.
Oh,
it very well could be a camp out at midnight
That's
situation.
like the Michael Jackson trial.
It very well could be. So I'm going to let the first few days of this trial like go, and then I'm going to figure out
You're going to feel it out.
What is it going to take to get a public seat sitting in that courtroom so that we can go watch the trial? Because both of us are a little hurt that as of now, the judge still is not allowing cameras or audio feed in that courtroom. However, today, East Idaho News sent a very strongly worded letter to Judge Boyce saying, would you please, please, please allow a camera? And if you're not going to allow a camera, at least allow the audio feed. And they gave a whole plethora of different options that Judge Boyce should consider for letting media in the courtroom.
So is he still thinking about it?
Well, he's already ruled that there weren't going to be any cameras in the courtroom. I don't know if that includes
They're just trying to change his mind.
Audio. Yeah, they're trying to change his mind.
Okay.
But so that's one update. The other update is that Chad's attorney is still trying to bifurcate the trial. He doesn't want to do a joint trial with Lori. He is claiming, I am not going to be ready in 5 weeks. Thus far, the judge isn't buying his story. We'll see as this gets closer because he renewed this motion. I talked about this last time. And the judge told him no. Well, he renewed it again. And the judge told him no again yesterday. And then the big ruling that came out was whether or not Chad and Lori were going to claim mental issues. Their attorneys have said they will only claim mental issues if they're found guilty and they get to the penalty phase of the trial, because there's 2 phases of the trial. The first phase to find out if they're guilty, and if they're found guilty, the second phase is what are we sentencing them to? And so they will plead mental health issues if they are found guilty.
You can do that? You can just all of a sudden be like, oh, by the way, mental health issues.
By the way, that's crazy.
What?
Well, you can use it as a mitigating factor as to why we shouldn't put you on death row, because this is a death row case for both of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mormons behaving badly. There you go. All right. Favorite things, girlfriend?
Okay. My favorite thing this month is a book. This is rare for me. I'm not a big reader, but I'm in a book club. And I have been for years, and I am the person that goes and never reads the book.
Yes, we discussed that.
I show up for the food.
Did you actually read the book?
I made a New Year's resolution that I'm going to read the books this year.
Oh.
And I have read like 4 already. We're not even to April yet. I've read April's book.
You read 4 books this year?
Here's what happened. I accidentally got an Audible subscription that I didn't know I had. So then I had all these Audible credits. And then I was like, well, I'll use them on the book club books.
Oh.
I've cracked the code. I need to listen to a book.
Oh, see, that's how I have to do a book too.
Instead of read a book. So I've cracked the code. But I listened to this book. It was darling. Like the best book I've read or listened to in a long time. It's called The Brilliant Life of Eudora Honeycutt. Okay. It is the cutest story. Listen on the audiobook because the narrator has a British accent. It takes place in England. It is this sweet story about this cranky little old lady who wants to end her life, like, euthanasia type thing. And then she meets this quirky, sassy little neighbor girl that just like brings her so much joy. It is so cute. So sweet. I loved it.
Okay. Well, my favorite thing is a mop, because you know how I feel about my floors. You and I feel similarly about our floors.
We're kind of vacuum junkies.
Vacuum and mop junkies. It's really true. Now, I can use this on my floor because I have tile. You wouldn't be able to use it on your floor because you have hardwood. It is a steam mop. Now, I had the regular Shark steam mop, which was great, but I upgraded to a Shark scrub and steam mop. This thing has 2 round discs, and the round discs like whirl around. And so you've got the round discs swirling around while the steam comes out. And let me tell you, the dirt it pulls up from my floor is beyond frightening.
Wow.
Now, it only came with 2 round discs, which I knew was not going to be sufficient. So Amazon to the rescue. And I got 10 more round discs in the mail. So
how long can you reuse them? Or
yeah. So you use the round disc. You get it all dirty. You throw it
and
in
then
the
you
wash.
wash it. Okay.
And so technically I have 6 sets of discs,
Mhm.
and I probably have like 1,000 square feet of tile on the main floor of my house. I've got
Yeah.
a ton of tile on the main floor of my house. So I will use all 6 set of discs in doing my floor.
Oh.
Here's the only bad thing about the mop. After you mop for about 45 minutes, because it does take forever because I got a lot of tile,
Ugh.
the mop's like, we're done. So it will quit spinning after about 45 minutes. But if you can get 45 minutes of spinning, you're going to have really clean floors.
You're killing your mop.
I'm killing my mop, but I've got clean floors. They're cleaner than they've ever been.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think that does it.
I think that wraps it up for episode number 1. So, folks, we're going to turn around and we're going to record episode number 2. So if you're listening to this after you're done,
come back for number 2.
Come back for more.
We'll talk pop culture, recipe.
Oh, we have a fun activity planned for episode number 2. You're going to want to tune in.
We brought props.
Thanks, Twim.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Good night.